How is everybody today? How was your weekend? I know we're already at Tuesday here, but I hope you had a great weekend. You got lots of fresh air and you were hanging out in Mother Nature. Best place to be, I say. So we have an exciting show today. I'm going to be introducing you to Kelly Johnson, and I've got a lovely intro that I'm going to be reading to you in just a minute. But before we get started, we are celebrating Pride all month long, and of course beyond that. But this week, if you wanted to check out the blog, I wrote a story about a really amazing organization in Halton who supports our youth ages 6 to 24. They are awesome. You have to go to my blog. You can read all about them there, and you can read about how you can get involved to help out and support our youth right here in our community. So that's number one. Number two is I want to thank you guys so much, all of the outpour of love and texts and support about Boink, our dog, and as she is unfortunately coming to the end of her life, but she's still got lots of good days and does not seem to be in any kind of pain. I guess our biggest stress right now is just trying to get her to eat. So if anybody has any suggestions on something that maybe she could absolutely not resist, I would be open to that. So yeah, there's just certain things where she's not eating. So anyway, but I wanted to thank you guys because you're so amazing. All of this love you're giving is awesome. And speaking of love, I also wanted to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Brenda Badome, who works so hard and has the most beautiful clothes. And I love wearing them every day. And today I have her gorgeous floral top on, and looks great with the jewels. She's just so wonderful, and I love the cut of her tops. Like if you look, see all the room there? It's so perfect. Like on a hot summer day, you feel dressed up but comfy at the same time, and good for hot flashes too. So make sure you check out brendabadome.com and use that coupon code Get to Know Her, because she is generously giving us all 21% off of her items on her website. So make sure you use that. Now, you guys, it's time to introduce Kelly. Kelly Bron Johnson is an autistic and hard of hearing self-advocate, keynote speaker, entrepreneur, and author of How to Parent Like an Autistic. She's also the founder of Completely Inclusive and the Autistic Entrepreneur Network. As a Black non-binary person, her work is focused on intersectionality and in creating equitable, inclusive, and accessible environments. She also advocates for the peaceful and respectful parenting and schooling of children. She is mama to 2 disabled children and lives in Montreal, Quebec. We're going to Montreal right now. Kelly!
Hey!
How's the weather in Montreal, by the way? Are you guys in the sunshine?
Yes, in the sunshine, and it is decent. It is not 40 degrees. We are doing well.
That's great. Today it's so nice here. It's like 18. I always call this California weather, where it's just like that perfect temperature, like
yes.
We're not sweating, and oh, that's great. So whereabouts are you? Are you right in the city, or?
I'm in the north part of the island.
Okay.
Not far from Laval, just across the bridge.
Nice. It's funny, this weekend I was talking to a friend and we were talking about fears, and we were actually talking about, we both have a fear of bridges. Oh. So when I went to California with my husband, and I was on that San Francisco bridge, he wanted to go across, and I was like, I can't do it. There's no way I can't do it. I was so freaked out. But then my friend pointed out, she goes, the scariest bridge in the whole entire world is the Victoria Bridge. Would you agree with that?
Have you gone in that? Well, I'm not scared. God, yeah. I'm not scared of bridges. I'm not scared of heights. I used to rock climb.
Oh wow!
So yeah, but the Victoria Bridge is special. I mean, it's a relic. I mean, you can see straight down, right? So
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had to go across it a couple. I think I've been across it like 5 times, and every time the palms, I think the sweat's just dripping.
Well, it's the way that you vibrate over it, right? Because it's not a
Yeah, that's
road.
right.
It's actually just a
No.
metal grill. So your car
Yeah.
kind of shakes while you're going over it.
Yeah, it's a scary one. Oh, but you live in a beautiful city. I love Montreal. It's amazing. Can't wait to get back there. And you guys have been through a lot with the pandemic there. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Lots of ups and downs. So Kelly, I can't wait to dive right in. Your career is fascinating to me. I have so many questions. But I wanted to ask you the first question I ask all my guests, and that is, what did little Kelly want to be when she grew up?
So I had, my mom kept these little childhood books, like those little, you could write in, and every year. Anyway, I remember like the first one, I think I was 4 or 5. I said, I want to be like her. I wanted to be a receptionist.
Nice.
But then it changed a bit. I wanted to be a scientist. And as that kind of evolved, I said, I want to be an entomologist. That's the study of insects. And that became my interest and like my specialization, to the point where I even wrote a speech for public speaking about insects. I think I was in grade 4, and I got up there, and I think everybody was totally confused. What is this little girl going on about arachnids and everything? But yeah, so I think that was probably one of the first cues into that maybe she's autistic. but nobody knew at the time.
Wow, that is incredible. So tell us about being diagnosed as autistic. When did that happen for you, and how was that on you? How did that feel? Were you? Yeah.
Sorry, I was only diagnosed when I was 32, after my son was diagnosed. Because before that, I didn't, like, I would have thought, me autistic? Nah. I knew I was weird, right? I didn't fit in, for sure. I did very well in school with that structure, but I didn't fit in. And I always had just maybe 1 or 2 friends, and I had some episodes of getting bullied as well. But I was seen as the weird one. I was seen as the stubborn person, the picky eater. And I also got called the walking encyclopedia. Because if somebody wanted to know something, they say, oh, ask Kelly. Kelly will know. And because I love knowledge and I have a memory for it. So for me, when you don't have the right label on yourself, especially children, we put all the other negative things that we're called on ourselves instead. And so having the actual diagnosis was like a rebirth for me. It was a way of understanding myself and having my identity, and not in a way that I was broken or wrong or stupid. I don't want to use those terms, but knowing that, okay, there's a reason that I'm struggling. And not only is there a reason, but there are supports that I can use now that I know what it is I need. So that was, a rebirth is really the best way to put it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's a long time to wait for that diagnosis, 32.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of years of a lot of questions. And like you said, all those negative things, like where, you feel stupid or you feel like an outsider, you're getting all this pressure from the outside, but I can't imagine the pressure that you're also putting on yourself. That must have been really hard.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's the challenge. And I spent a lot of time wondering why I couldn't do certain things the way that other people did. And then on the opposite end, if I did something faster than other people were capable of, thinking, well, I must have done it wrong. How could I have done it so fast? I must be missing something. And then you kind of get made fun of too if you do things fast or well, right? Because then, she's too smart and she shouldn't be showing off. And it's not that I'm showing off. It's just something was particularly easy for me and other things were hard for me. And it's hard to live in that. I guess it's a feeling of unbalance, right? And people judge you for it because they go, well, if she was so smart and so good in this one area, why can't she just do this other simple thing? So it's kind of tough.
Yeah, for sure. Did you find you were being judged by your educators, like by teachers, or was it more with like kids in the class kind of thing?
So in elementary, for sure, educators
Mhm.
were happy to see me. I was like the model student, right? Didn't
Yeah.
talk to anybody, didn't make a peep, just did my work,
Hmm.
and that was it. And so I didn't cause trouble. Um, but they were, what they weren't looking at was the fact that socially I wasn't succeeding.
Hmm.
Academically I was, but socially I wasn't. So I followed around the teachers a lot. The
Hmm.
teachers were like, "Oh, you're great, you're quiet. Be like Kelly," right? They want let's be like Kelly, but Kelly had no friends.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
um, but I would say as time went, like when it came to high school, I kind of just decided that I would embrace my weirdness. I say, well, if I'm
Hmm.
not going to fit in, I might as well not fit in, and to the point where I actually got voted as class clown for my graduating class, because I just said, well, if I'm going to be weird, I'm going to be weird, and we're going to laugh, not at me, but with me, kind of thing.
Wow.
Um, but I'd say in the workplace is probably where it becomes difficult, because that's that
Hmm.
concept again. Well, she did really well. She's a high performer in this area. How could she make such a social gaffe? How could she say something? She should know she should know better. Um, when I'm not able to read some of the social cues that are going on around me, and completely oblivious to office politics. Um,
Yeah.
and somebody would get fired and I'd be completely shocked, and they'd be like, well, Kelly, why wouldn't you put two and two together? He did this and this and this and this. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, okay, I didn't think of it that way. Like, because I just don't think like that. So, yeah.
Amazing. That's amazing. So after your diagnosis and learning more about autism and also having your son, um, what did you kind of, and I'm asking this sort of as a person, I'm going to be like, as a person who knows nothing. We often hear about the about autism and the spectrum, right?
Mhm.
What does all of that sort of mean to you in your life? Like, how is that explained to you, how this spectrum works?
So
Is-
I'd say that the way that I describe it
yeah.
is going to be influenced by the autistic people that I know and that I'm
Okay.
in community with. So, for example, I'm in a group with Autism Canada on Facebook. There's an adults only group.
Yeah.
And so those are all autistic people from all walks of life across Canada. Verbal, nonverbal, doesn't matter. And I would say that regardless of how we look on the outside, and I don't mean look by appearance, but I mean in
Mhm.
terms of how we appear or how we speak, um, I'd say 98% of the time I agree with the way that they're thinking, and we communicate just fine. Autistic people have
Yeah.
great communication together. we
That's
it can fall
awesome.
apart with other people, but we have great communication together. We understand our way of thinking. And I had the great privilege of being part of the public consultations recently for autism, and being in a group with AAC users. These are nonverbal autistic people using alternative augmentative communication,
Okay.
and they're saying the same things. They're having the same
Wow.
experiences, and that's and they're typing,
Mhm.
but they have behaviors that look like to regular people that look like they're not paying attention, or that they're not interested, or that they're not intelligent, because that's how people perceive us when we're not speaking. But we're saying the same things. We're having the same feelings. We're having the same needs. So I kind of want to help parents kind of get away from this idea of how your child presents
Mhm.
is not an indication of what they're capable of. And that's never, whether a person can speak or not is never an indication of their intelligence either. We have a tendency to kind of infantilize any people with disabilities, but we tend to do that, and we tend to do that if they're not talking, and your ability to speak has nothing to do with what you're capable of expressing.
That's incredible. I wanted to share with you. I remember growing up. I'm 52, so I grew up. Public school was in the 70s, and then high school was in the 80s. And I remember a couple of kids who were autistic and nonverbal, and exactly what you're saying. I don't think there was the right care in place at that time. Like, those children were not communicating. They had no devices. They had no way of expressing themselves. And, looking back on that now, I just think that that's so sad, because there was so much in there that perhaps was never discovered. Yeah, it's really, it's tragic.
It is.
Yeah. And so, Kelly, I just love your passion for helping people to understand this better. And I'd love for you to tell people about your business and what you do.
So for sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah.
So it's an interesting story how I got into it. So, like, after I got my diagnosis, I got quite heavily into activism and advocacy. And I had spent the day at Parliament Hill speaking about the protests that many groups got together to protest the DTC, the changes that were being made to the disability tax credit. So for people who don't know, disability tax credit is a credit that is given by the government for people with disabilities because of the extra costs that are often involved in our care and daily living. But they started making changes, started cutting back on it to the point where we actually joined up with Diabetes Canada, because diabetics were being asked to prove that they still need insulin to survive.
Oh.
So they had to go back to the process again. It's quite a lengthy process. Amputees were being told that they had to prove that their legs hadn't grown back magically in 5 years. So they keep having to prove all the time. And so autistic people as well were being told that they had to go and get re-diagnosed and show that, yes, you are still you're still autistic, when we know it's a lifelong condition. So I'd spent the day at Parliament Hill in Ottawa doing that. And then I came home that night. And at the time, my son was 8. And, he said, "What were you doing today?" And I told him, I said, this is what I did. I went to Ottawa to try and make it better for you, so that when you turn 18 and go out into the world, you won't have to struggle like this. And he said, "Okay, Mom, you've got 10 years. That's a big deal."
Oh.
And I said, okay, maybe he's got a point. 10 years, yeah. You can do a lot in 10 years. So not long after that, I founded Completely Inclusive. And that is, the aim of that is to change businesses first. I'm hoping that if I change the mindset of businesses to be completely inclusive. And by that, I mean, I'm including, minorities, I'm including all racialized issues, I'm including different religions, I'm including the LGBTQ community and the disability community. And I feel that if I can change businesses, that will spread out. Employees will take that message kind of thing and spread it out to the rest of society when they start to realize the benefits of everybody being inclusive and accessible. And so that is basically what has fueled me. I've been doing that for 3 years now. So I've got 7 years to go, according to my son. I've got 7 years to do this, my 10-year plan. But, why not? Why not? I mean, somebody's got to do this work. That's kind of my, my opinion. Someone's got to do it. Let's all get out there and start doing this. So
amazing. Yeah. So what's your experience been with that? Like, do you pursue businesses and say, here's what I do, I'd like to work with you? Or do you find they come to you and then you've got to kind of get that messaging across to their employees? Or how does that whole process work?
So I think I've been quite lucky, because I get most of my contacts through conference speaking. And I haven't really had to pursue companies per se. They tend to find me. This is something that they're looking for. And I tend to really I want to work with people who are already, already have this understanding that this is a benefit. A lot of the times it comes from somebody who has a personal experience, somebody in their family, or something, might have a disability or something, and then they realize, okay, this is important. Because it takes longer. If I'm trying to go and convince somebody of this importance, it takes a lot longer, and it's I have to kind of also protect my own energy, because it's my life and my livelihood, and so that's also part of the reason I started making online courses too, to kind of try and make it as accessible and reach as many people as possible. But yeah, in general, businesses that want to work with me, they already know the value and they're ready to start getting to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. And the online courses, did you develop that with the pandemic, or was that always part of your business model?
So it wasn't. The pandemic has made a lot of changes for me. But at the same time, the online courses aren't really a big shift from what I know or what I've been educated in, because I used to teach English as a second language. So I have a background in teaching, which is also why, being able to train businesses has come in so handy. I'm using all these different skills that I've amassed over my career. But yeah, so it just kind of worked out that way, that, with the pandemic, do the online course and continue to get the message out. I think that's what's really most important.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now tell us about your book, please.
Oh, yes. So I've been busy. So I have a copy of my book. This book, unfortunately, it landed in my printer and it went through the printer and it broke my printer. But the book survived. So it's a little mangled, but it's still here. So yes. So it's called How to Parent Like an Autistic, and I wrote and published that last year. And that came out of conversations with other autistic adults and starting to see that we have a lot of similarities in the way that we parent. And I did a survey. So I did a survey of a whole bunch of parents, very open-ended, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And I found that we have a lot of interesting commonalities. And my other, non-scientific idea is that I'm hoping somebody will research. I want to see if autistic parents parenting autistic children has a benefit. Like if we're somehow more accepting, because maybe we are more accepting off the bat because we know what to expect. Because I feel that there's a lot of pressure being placed on parents by professionals, to say your kid has to be doing this and that, and they have to be in a special therapy, otherwise they'll never be able to do this. And that's not the case. That's just not the case. That's just not the truth. The fact is, autism is a developmental disability. So we're going to develop differently. It doesn't mean never. Different doesn't mean never. And I find, just from my interactions and my own development, we tend to continue to learn long into our aging, even senior years. And we can develop new skills quite late in life, to the point where I've seen people who are 35, 40 getting their first apartment. So it might take us longer, but it doesn't mean never. And so I just want parents to kind of not, to try and resist some of those pressures that are coming from doctors and from education professionals. And if your child's not learning math right now in grade 2, maybe in grade 5, they will master it and they will continue on. But don't worry so much about the timeline. And it doesn't have to be in the same order as a neurotypical person either. We can jump steps. So I wrote an article on LinkedIn just recently, just last week, where I said, I can't tie my shoes. And there's certain clothing I don't like to wear. I've got my own challenges. I sleep quite a bit. I sleep quite a lot, actually, compared to other people. But I'm still able to be successful. So tying my shoes, you know what? Maybe that's something, let's not stress about that.
Yeah.
Maybe kids don't have to learn to tie their shoes. They can wear flats and slip-ons like I do. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that I can't learn math or write or do anything else, really.
Wow. So. Parents must feel such a sense of relief when they talk to you.
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, just you saying the tying the shoes, like that. I mean, it sounds like a small thing, but it's such a big deal for kids, right? Like, and the stress that the parents will put on the kid for that one little thing without even realizing that they're doing that. Like, or any of those kinds of things. It's like what you were saying before. There's certain things where you are miles ahead and you're processing and figuring it out very quickly. And then other things where that's not happening, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, the whole world doesn't need to tie their shoes. Like, come on.
Right.
The nicest shoes do not have laces on them anyway, for God's sakes.
But that's one example I brought up in the book. Was we had a doctor tell us at, like, I think my son was 2 or 3, I don't remember. And they said, is he eating with a fork? And I said, no, he's not. He eats with his hands. And he said, well, if he doesn't learn how to eat with a fork now, like, he's never going to learn how to eat with a fork. And I was like, but most of the world doesn't eat with forks, to be honest. Most of the world eats with spoons and chopsticks, like the majority of the world, or with their hands. And I learned how to use chopsticks later in life. I'm sure many people do here in North America.
Yeah.
Surely this is not going to be a problem. Like, and it's like, and so I was like, let's not stress about the little things.
Kelly, I'm amazed by you. What do you think it is that you've experienced, that you've been able to rise above this? Because I think for many people, we listen to our doctors, we listen to our specialists, we don't question. And then what ends up happening is we feel this stress and this pressure. So can you identify, is there something that happened in your life where you were like, I'm always going to ask questions, and I'm always going to look at things from both sides and every angle. I'm not going to just go with that herd mentality kind of thing, or whatever it is. Like,
it might be the autism.
Yeah.
Because we tend not to fall for peer pressure. And that's part of why we stick out a lot of times.
Yeah.
And there's the statistics. 70% of autistic people are gender nonconforming. And that could be because we don't really pick up, or we don't care about some of those social cues or gender norms. So we don't care if something's pink or something's blue. If we like it, we're going to like it. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. And so we're extremely resilient to peer pressure, which is fantastic. So for parents, if you're worried about things like that, just make sure children know your values. But we're extremely resistant to peer pressure. We really just go to the beat of our own drums a lot of the time. So I think it comes from that. And my father too had instilled in me, not everyone's going to like you, just like you don't like everyone, but you keep doing you, just keep doing what you need to do, and don't worry about the rest. So
great. So you never fell into the people pleasing trap or any of that stuff.
I can still people please.
Yeah.
I can, but I think when there's certain things, especially with my kids, I am very protective and very much like, I just want my kids to be kids. I want them to enjoy their childhood and not stress if they're, I don't need my 5-year-old doing calculus. It's not important. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to stress. Or people, oh, is he reading it? No, not yet, but it will come. Those kind of things. Yeah.
Good. That's great. So you have 2 children.
I have 2.
Wow. And they're 8 and 5?
5 and 11.
Oh, 5 and 11 now. Okay. Great. Wow. And how do they get along with each other?
They are amazing. So my youngest one is adopted, and you kind of have ideas when you adopt that, they might not quite get along, or but what I've seen is this amazing bond that they have, that, like, I think it's even stronger than the bond I had with my own sister, to see this. And they're both boys. They adore each other. They really do. They annoy each other. Yeah. which is normal, but they really, I can see the benefits that each has for each other, even though, they're 6 years apart. It's quite an age gap.
Yeah.
But I can see, the ways that they kind of support each other, and it's super cute, because my 5-year-old is not autistic. So he's learning to communicate and live with an autistic brother, and sometimes the way he gets his attention, he'll be like, come on, hey, and he starts snapping.
Aww.
But it's cute. I find it's really cute, and I think they're just really good for each other for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great. So what are your plans moving forward with your business, with all of the things that you're passionate about? What have you kind of got on deck that's happening?
So I always have, I think that I need to have a lot of things going in order to just keep myself motivated or interested.
Mm-hmm.
I am hoping to write another book, a follow-up to the first book. I'm not going to reveal that yet, but
yeah,
I am going to be spending the summer taking at least one class. I just got news that I got accepted today to Vermont Law School.
Amazing.
Yes, I got the email at 11:30 or something. I was like, ah! Anyway.
Oh my God, that's so good. Oh shoot, I wish I had confetti.
Yeah, I wish I could. But, so yeah, I'm going to be taking a certificate in restorative justice. So that's going to take up all my summer, I think.
Okay, tell us, what is restorative justice?
So it's about, I guess, the concept of justice not seen as a punishment, but more as a way that people can give back to the community or make reparation to the community. They found that this has been very healing for the victims and for the perpetrators as well. And that it also reduces the rate of recidivism.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying.
I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying.
All these words, but yeah. So they're less likely to return to prison when these kind of practices are used. And so a lot of them, they've been experimental in some communities. A lot of the indigenous ways of doing things have been always in a restorative kind of guide or spirit of doing things. And so I believe that this is a way to heal communities. I would like to see it as an end to the school to prison pipeline. There's a whole lot of things really tied up in this, in the sense that, for example, we know right now that our indigenous people are overrepresented in care, and they're also overrepresented in the prison industry here in Canada. And we know with unconscious bias as well that Black and Indigenous children are perceived to be more aggressive. They're perceived to be larger. They are often targeted by, in educational institutions as seeing as having bad behavior when that's not necessarily the case. So all these biases and racial issues kind of play a part in this. And I feel that restorative justice is a way of kind of hoping to heal communities, to create schools that are less toxic, to end the school to prison pipeline, because a child who is behaving differently does not need to be punished. We still have seclusion and restraint practices here in Canada, which means that a school can take a child and restrain them. They can tie them up and put them on the floor and sit on them. They can lock them in isolated rooms by themselves. We're all perfect. It's perfectly legal in Canada for us to do this in any public school. And what people don't know is that a lot of public schools actually have a special room for seclusion, but most people do not know about it. You'd have to ask specifically. So I mean, here in Quebec, we had a case just a few years ago of a school in Laval that it was specifically an autistic school, an autism school, but they locked up a child in a closet. And these, being restrained, we know that it kills adults, it kills children. So not to get too dark here on your interview, but these are things that people don't talk about and that people don't necessarily know. And that's what I'm working really hard to try and change. I want to see these practices abolished. Kids should go to school to learn, not to be handcuffed and taken by police and apprehended because they're having a bad day. Because they couldn't deal with their emotions that day. And that's all ties into the work I'm trying to do.
Yeah, that's amazing, Kelly. And no, never too dark, because we have to, this is how we learn. And I didn't know this. I mean, you know, if we don't talk about it and it's not out there and we're not aware, it's interesting. I was talking to one of my guests the other week, and we were talking about, you know, global warming and what we can do to save the planet. And she made a really good point. She said, you know, so many of us, we get stressed out about what can I do? What can I do? I'm putting a piece of plastic in the garbage. I feel so guilty. She said, it's not the individual, though. It is, we need to go to our, you know, to our mayor's office. We need to advocate for things. We need to push our government in the right direction. And so by you know, explaining what's going on and putting light on things that many of us probably don't know about, it gives us power, right? We're now empowered to learn more about that, and what is it that we can do in our own community to make sure that that doesn't happen anymore. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, yeah, I think it's amazing what you're doing. I love your voice. I could listen to you talk about all day long. Yeah. You're so amazing. So did you want to talk a little bit about FemBot and how you learned about those guys? Yeah, we're both a part of the same group. For people who don't know, FemBot is it's like a networking group where women can come and access resources to help grow their businesses. And they have a special scholarship award that they also provide to minority-owned business women, which is awesome. So I'm just curious to know, Kelly, how you got involved with them, how you found them.
So I'm not sure even how I found them, but I remember I made an application for the scholarship, and she wrote me back and she said, you know, we're going to try and make this happen for you, and connected me with you, which is fantastic because he did the fundraiser for us. I went to my first meeting last month. I went to the first member meeting. And it was great. It's fantastic to me. It's such a great sense of fellowship. It's really important to me to be among other entrepreneurs, especially other women. And I think, you know, because I was talking to somebody about that, you know, the fact that when you're alone, especially if you're a solopreneur, we don't have coworkers. We can't really bounce ideas off each other. But nobody else understands your experience like other entrepreneurs do, for sure. And especially, I think, especially women entrepreneurs, we have our own special issues and flair to that. And so, it's a wonderful sense of community.
Yeah, it's so great. And you know, it's interesting. I got involved with that because I had interviewed Sophia, the founder, on my show. And then after she was telling me about the scholarship program, and then I was just sort of YouTubing it and learning more about it, and the statistics of how much support there is for minority-owned business women in comparison to the white woman. I was like, what? This is a real, like, just like what you were saying now about the schools. Like, I'm like, this is actually happening? Like, no, come on. You know, and so then I talked to Sophia. I said, like, what can we do? How can we help? Because this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And so you were the first recipient from us with our bracelets. And it was so awesome. So, you know, I'm really excited about what she's doing. And I like the messaging too, that it's, you know, her scholarship, it's a really great way to empower us to use, like, even what you were saying earlier, Kelly, you have all of these different skill sets and you're drawing from different experiences in your life, and you're bringing these skill sets together to create something new. And that's like a whole teaching in itself, right? And when women realize the power that they have and the skill sets that are behind them, often they don't need the $100,000, you know, funding that they thought they needed. What they needed to learn was, how do I use my own skills? How do I network? How do I get people to support me? Like, it's just, I think it's incredible how much we can do without money sometimes.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think a big part of it too is the getting out of your own way, right?
Yes. Oh my God.
What
Yeah.
I've seen with a lot of women is they feel, well, I have to get a certificate before I can do this, or I have to do this before I can do. It's, whoa, whoa, whoa! You don't need to keep putting more barriers, right? We have enough barriers, thanks. You know.
Yes.
And so it's really about trying to, I think, to empower women to say, you have enough. You are enough. You have enough. You've done so much, you know, even if and I don't want to say all you've done is raise kids, because that is everything, you know. Raising children, you learn so much. There's so many skills, the multitasking kind of skills that you're using. But and even if you haven't, there's just so many experiences that we've gone through where we've had to overcome barriers that, you know, what you're doing, you're the only person that can do what you do. And it would be a travesty not to share your gift with the world. That's the way that I look at things. You know, if you're sitting there and you're saying, well, I don't think it's good enough. Oh, somebody is missing out on you because you're scared that it's not going to be good enough when somebody really needs that. So that's kind of what, you know, what kind of keeps me motivated too, is that I can't sleep on this. I've got to, somebody needs me somewhere. Somebody needs to hear what I have to say. It's important. And so when you value that and you value your, you know, the natural talent that you have, you've got to put it out there. You've absolutely got to. Yeah.
So important. I love that. Kelly, you're amazing. You want to come on next week again?
Why not?
You know what? When I get out to Montreal again, we'll have to have a coffee or something.
For sure.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you for sharing so much with us. Is there anything that I missed? Is there anything that you want to... I've given everyone actually here, they can link up to you, your website's there, so people can learn more about you there. And they can, of course, follow you on Instagram and Facebook. We have all that info as well. But this has been so much fun. And I really want to invite you to an Instagram after party. If I may.
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
I wonder if I can get my hair going for that. I don't know what it's doing. Anyway.
I love your hair. I loved all your photos and stuff. Yeah, it's great. I keep because of the pandemic, you know, sometimes even as busy as we are as business women, boredom strikes. And a few weeks ago, I said to my husband, I'm going to go upstairs and dye my hair pink. I have to do something for the fun. And he said, no, I'll do it for you. So,
lovely.
Still, But isn't it funny how when we see ourselves like this, it's true. If you look even, you know, back to people when the pandemic first started and we were more on screen, everyone's playing with their hair. It's so hilarious, where we wouldn't have noticed, you know, in person. The hair is important, that's for sure. Yeah. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you so much. I'm going to put you back in the virtual green room. And as I say, you can pour yourself a glass of champagne or whatever.
Thank you so much, Monica.
No problem. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Kelly Johnson, what an amazing person. Oh my gosh, I learned so much today. I hope you did too. And I would love for you to please go check out our sponsor, Brenda Badome, at brendabadome.com, and use the coupon code Get to Know Her for 21% off of your order. This video is going to be uploaded to YouTube. So if you happen to be watching it there, I would love for you to subscribe to the channel and press the little notification button. And that way I can keep you in the loop of all of the amazing women who I have the privilege of interviewing once a week right here on the Get to Know Her show. Thank you so much for being here, and keep on showing the world your sparkle. Bye for now.